All right, test is tomorrow. I think it's important that we get the study guide done today and tonight. Study guide with big emphasis on immigration and railroads. And you need to get on Zoom in and check out the hopes and the fears part, and also check out the part about why immigrants were being pushed out of their lands. Okay, why they were being pushed, and you can find that in the portion of Zoom in with where the context review, to where it reviews all three charts or graphs. You can find that information. We're going to start out and talk about census records. So the first one, why are census records important resource for historians? Why are census records important? That was your bell ringer today. Why were census records important for historians? Jared?
So that we could know how many immigrants are coming in, how many people are in the country.
Well, yeah, it gives us a story. How many immigrants are coming into the country? What the population is? I think. Oh, go ahead, add to it.
What the state or area was doing right at the time.
Absolutely. So he said, if we have in 1890, we had almost 50,000 Germans, almost 30 to 40% of our state's population was German. So we look at those census records and say, why do we have 50,000 Germans? According to census records, we have 50,000 Germans living in Kansas in 1890. So then we look and say, well, what was Kansas doing to pull German immigrants into their state? And that's what we're going to talk about with another question here. Why did we see such a large influx of German immigrants into our state? So census records will tell us a story. Census records will also tell state stories even today of why people are leaving, why the population is going up, why the population is going down. But for historians, it can tell us stories. Like yesterday, you did the activity. It can tell us when a family moved to Kansas from another state or from another country. It can tell us about their family, when they had their kids and how many they had. Just a good bit of information, and it paints a picture for historians. If you don't get this written down, I would really encourage you to get on Edmodo tonight and get to this YouTube section. If you're on the track bus, put your earbuds in, plug them in, or put one earbud in your ear and another earbud in another person's ear. You can both listen to a review kind of for this. And I would encourage you to tell all the track kids that if they don't come and see me, that this is what they need to do tonight is hit up this YouTube clip video on this. How did European immigration affect the settlement of Kansas? And this is something we've talked about even today. How did European immigration affect the settlement of Kansas?
It had some of the names of towns and affected the events and the culture that went on and what food was there.
Okay.
It made the population grow.
It did. It went back, and we'll hit yours here in a second, what you just said, but to hers, it helped us grow our state. We were suffering in the late 1800s for population. We were needing people to get here, and the immigrants provided the base for our state to grow. Look no further than German immigrants, Scandinavian immigrants, Irish immigrants. They flooded Kansas and helped us grow our population. Now, to go on what he said, that is evident today in our cities and our towns in our great state. Okay, Hanover, Kansas. Hanover is a name that comes directly from Germany. Frankfort, Kansas, directly from Germany. The celebrations, Hayes is a strong German town, German settlement back in the late 1800s. They celebrate their German heritage every year at their Oktoberfest. Okay, these towns are not shy about letting people know where they're from. We discussed Cuba in great detail back in the fall. And we talked about how the owner of the Cuba Cash store, if he did not keep a Czech bologna ring in his butcher case, meat case, the elders of that community who were proud of their Czech heritage would raise a ruckus, and they would be mad. They blare polka music in the mornings. on the loudspeakers on Main Street in Cuba. They love their Czech heritage. They're not afraid to let people know that. So our towns in Kansas are proud of our past and our history and where we have come from, and I think that's cool. So the immigrant population has built our state, as we're going to see as we get going here. I'm going to put up the map and we're going to pinpoint where we all came from. First hour's already done that. What were some of the reasons the African Americans left the South after the Civil War? Meaning, what were some of the reasons they were pushed from the South?
They were pushed from the South because of discrimination and violence.
Discrimination and violence. They were being discriminated because of their race. They needed a new life, a new beginning. Okay?
They wouldn't be able to make enough money to own land.
And that there wasn't sharecropping, right? That was their only avenue of income, even if they got the income. There was still racism and discrimination going on in the South after the Civil War. It still goes on today, unfortunately. And so there wasn't a lot of jobs that were out there because a lot of the business owners and the farmers were white, and they were not going to hire African Americans because they were upset that slavery was not a law, and they were going to take it out on them. And so one thing they did was sharecropping. The African Americans they were going to plant and harvest and work the fields and do all the work, and they would get a very, very, very small portion of the income, or if they even didn't get the income, they got part of the crop, enough to feed them. So they got room and board, and they really were not making enough to save up to make their own start, buy their own land, build their own home. And that was a big reason why they got pushed out. Why did so many African Americans come to Kansas after the Civil War? What was the pull? What was the pull to Kansas?
So is it easier way to make money there?
Okay, there was opportunity to make money,
Cheaper land.
cheaper land.
They thought there'd be less racism
There'd be, and why was that? Why would there be less racism?
because the Kansans fought for Kansas to be a free state.
Kansas, yeah, we were a free state during the Civil War, and they thought maybe there'd be less discrimination, more opportunity to own land, start their own dream, and that pulled them to Kansas. And that kind of goes with number 7 up here on the screen. Why did they feel that Kansas was a good place? They thought there was not going to be the discrimination. That was a large pull for them. What was the government's goal in giving the railroad free land? We talked about this. Why was the government giving them free land and money to build a transcontinental railroad? Do you remember us talking about this one before we built our towns? Why would the government, here, take this money, build your railroad, sell the land? Why would they do that? Why would they, and not expect and not say you have to pay us back? Why would they do that?
To connect the country together.
Okay, connect the country together by railroad. Why was that a big deal? Why was that going to be good? How is that going to benefit our country?
Like faster everything, like you could mail stuff better, you could travel better.
You faster travel. Okay, businesses would ship quicker. But what was the ultimate goal for the government, for this country?
Expansion.
Expansion. We were going to settle the West faster and build our country faster by putting a railroad from coastline to coastline. So the government gave them what was called subsidies, large amounts of money and land, and said, build your railroad. Here's the money. But what the books won't tell you is a lot of the railroad companies, a lot of the government officials said, as long as we get some stake in your company, meaning part ownership, because they knew the railroad was going to blow up and be a big money maker, and it did. Okay, so there's a little bit of shady dealing going on there. Why would a town want to be on the rail line? Why would the town want to be on the rail line? Why would a town want to be right on the railroad? What was in it for that town?
Because more things would go there.
You get more businesses would be attracted to your town.
You could send your product out.
If you're a business owner, man, you would want that. That was quicker to ship something by rail line than stagecoach.
When the people are coming out of the railroad and stuff, they'll see your business.
Absolutely. And that good things for your town. Your town was going to grow faster. Take this into consideration. Look at a place like, and there's nothing against Westmoreland, okay? Great town. Comparing it to Wamego, here's the deal. And I'm not going to say because Wamego is bigger today, it's because of the railroad. I want you to look downtown in our Main Street. And you can see the old buildings, right? Those buildings were around in the late 1800s. You can see our downtown, not how many businesses we have, but the way our downtown is built compared to the way Westmoreland's downtown was built. And you can tell back in the late 1800s how much more grand of a stage Wamego's Main Street was than Westmoreland. That what it must have been like. What beautiful buildings those were when they were first built. They're beautiful now. Westmoreland was originally going to get the railroad. And I found out that they were building over a water source and it collapsed and they thought it'd be too hard, so they redirected the railroad. It was also supposed to go through Flush, and that's why the grain elevator is built there, but they redirected it, and they never got the railroad. And if the railroad wasn't coming through your town, the only people you were going to get coming through your town was by horse and stagecoach instead of railroad. And that was a big deal. That was a big deal. Okay? I'm going to skip 10. 11, how did the Homestead Act encourage settlement in Kansas? I'm going to tell you about the Homestead Act. So you might want to write it down and revisit this tonight. And for the track people listening, here it is. In the late 1800s, Kansas needed something to get people to come to their state. They needed something to make people say, this is where this is the opportunity I need to start a new living. Well, the Homestead Act was started. And you had to be a citizen of the United States. You had to be a citizen of the United States. You had to be over the age of 21 to be eligible for this deal. So here's the deal. You could purchase 160 acres. That's a lot. You could purchase 160 acres for $10. Now, $10 was a lot of money back then. But here's the deal. It was a good deal when it came to 160 acres. Trust me. Too good of a deal to pass up. Here's the deal that came with the Homestead Act. That didn't become yours. You paid the state $10. You got your 160 acres. The deal was you got 5 years to show improvement to the land. I'm talking planting trees, build a house, show that you planted crops. Show that you've improved that land after 5 years. And if you showed that you improved that land in 5 years, the land was yours forever. Now, if you wanted to purchase that land outright, you could pay $1.25 an acre, which came out to around $200, which was a lot of money back. So that was a pretty good deal. Pay the government, the state of Kansas, $10, got 160 acres. All you had to do is show you could improve that land within 5 years. And that land was yours. And so that was a big pull for immigrants, a chance for a new beginning. Okay, $10 was doable. And that became a draw for people to come to Kansas and make a new start. Okay? What was that was kind of the poll, new beginning. So I'm not going to focus so much on 12. And that is what we're going to talk about as far as the study guide. Again, I can't stress it enough. Go to zoom in, look at me. Go to zoom in, focus on the hopes and fears. Focus on the graphs, on the context review. No, and here's another little tip. I want you to focus on the push-pull for exodusters and push-pull for immigrants. Okay? Got it? Those are some tips. Study your study guide, what you wrote down. Listen to this YouTube stuff. Get to zoom in. And I think if you really hit that hard, you will have a successful test tomorrow. One other thing I'm going to say. We always have people finish quicker than others. Bring a book to read or something else to work on while we wait for everyone else to finish their test tomorrow. Okay?